How do we honor loss while still finding hope, meaning, and gratitude? It sounds counterintuitive, but Mindy McManus of Mindy Executive Coaching inspired today's session in one of her posts, her always ever powerful and viral social media post, that she spoke about grieving with gratitude. And I thought, good, that's gotta be the ultimate humanity, humbleness, and just hope, all wrapped in one. So, and of course, we have our co-pilot today, Youssef Skalli from Scalability Coaching, our walking coach. So, Mindy, grieving with gratitude, loss changes us. Whether we lose a loved one or a relationship, a dream, a career, identity, or a chapter in our lives, grief asks us to redefine who we are and how we move forward. Get us started on today's topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to give a little bit of background, I lost my husband, my mother, and my father all within 8 months. And I recently lost my father about 2 weeks ago. And so the post was about, instead of focusing on my grief, because that's what I've been doing, I chose to focus on what was it that God brought me in the end for me to be grateful for. Because I hadn't talked to my dad in over 5 years. He never met Jimmy and never went to our wedding. And so, but I had an opportunity, because my dad ended up in the hospital, to go down there and be there for him and take care of him a bit and have some reconciliation and really have that last conversation where we both were able to leave, where I felt like he loved me and I loved him, and we were able to say how much we forgive each other for everything in life, and really be able to have that healing process. And some people would be like, oh my God, you had that healing process and then you lost them, and be like, you know what, God, that was a gift. It was a gift that God gave me, so that I didn't have to look back and regret that I hadn't tried harder or anything like that. But what I've learned through all of this grief is that nothing belongs to us. It all belongs to him, and it's his. And we are here to steward our relationships, to steward our business, to steward our life. And once you realize that nothing belongs to you, you can find the gratitude in the grief, because God's like, I gave them to you for a short amount of time, and now I want them back. Wow. And that's where I have to look at it and know that, just like God talks about, he turns everything for good, and he makes things turn into good. And that's why I can sit and rest in peace and have that gratitude in my grief.
Wow. And Youssef, you and I share a lot in we're long lost twins, where we've had a lot of similar constant change, similar turmoil in our, social political upbringing as we were growing up, and having a lot of things, a lot of chapters ending our life, and our having the courage to start a new one, right? Tell us about grief from your perspective.
Well, I shared that in a previous episode, and I love what Mindy said. When people hear grief, we often think immediately of funerals. We think of death. Life taught me through different losses in different shapes and forms that I learned gracefully and gratefully that when I hear grief, I think immediately of life as just part of the process of life. Because I learned the hard way that grief is an emotional response to losing something that mattered to me, to losing something that really meant a lot, and then to think how I carry that forward. And when I say losing something, it can be something or someone, a relationship, a dream, as you mentioned, Dr. Carolina, a career. And I learned also that in grief, I started understanding that we grieve the past, the present, and the future at the same time. And an image that we have, an imagined future that we had, whether when you mentioned the chapters that we had in our life, different chapters when one end and the new one opens. But I learned to understand that when a chapter ends, there is an imagined future image that ended also with that, and that's part of the grieving. And then how I can carry that forward to a next chapter without being it a blocking, but rather a motivator for a better chapter. So to me, grief, it's not a sign that something went wrong, but it's really a sign that something and someone mattered most, and it's a teacher of my own values and the values of people around me.
Yeah, and actually, Mindy, I'll preface something that you said that is very powerful. And sometimes when we're grieving, be it a good thing, if we are trying to move on, right? Or if we are getting stuck in that loss and that, I don't want to say victimhood, because it is real. What the person is feeling is real. But sometimes, and I don't want to use the word performative because it's a little harsh, but there's a secondary gain, right? And especially if we're trying to move too fast, right? Or trying to rush the process, it almost comes across unauthentic. And not that it matters what other people think about your grief or your grieving method.
For you.
Yeah.
But whatever we are doing is informing our heart, body, and mind. So the disservice of going extreme is really to us.
I think that when it comes to grief, people need to be curious, not judgmental. Because unless you've gone through what that person's gone through, and I would say this for anything, because nobody has seen the countless nights that I've cried all night long. Nobody has heard my late husband telling me, you need to go find somebody because you have too much love to give. Nobody sees me crying before I'm about to get onto a coaching call because I just can't hold it together. And the thing is that people are going to be people. And the only person that I need to please is God, not people. And I just give it up to him and I work through it with him. And again, we shouldn't really care about what anybody thinks about us, really and truly. We really shouldn't, because you know what? That's how the enemy tries to keep us from moving forward and getting to our God-given destiny.
That's really important, Mindy, and we see it whether for people on like public figures or even in our lives. We have a tendency to compare grief and say, "Oh, why Youssef is not crying? Why Youssef is not grieving like other person? Why Mindy is not behaving in a certain image that we have about grief? Why Dr. Carolina? I remember I had a conversation with you, Dr. Carolina, when you lost your pet last year, and like." I really love that you mentioned that you wanted to honor his life the way it felt convenient for you. So we tend to compare grief like if it is a pathway homogeneous that we all have to go through that. So thank you for mentioning that, Mindy, because no grief is like another one.
Yeah. And that's the truth between the genders and the age. I remember my in-laws when they were like, getting older, in their age, right? We would be sitting, in the sunroom, and the granddad would turn to the grandmom and go, "Do you know who died? John from the hardware store." And she would go, "Really? Huh?" And move on, right? Because losing, when you begin to lose your contemporaries, when you begin to lose your references, it means something, I guess, slightly different, or maybe your body prepares you at that point, than to say, someone died in their 20s or like, out of their time, right? And I remember when I first heard it, being of the Hispanic Latin, persuasion, that we're the hurling yourself at the grave kind of people. We are, drama, I don't know, it's ingrained in us. And I remember looking at them going like, that's an odd way of, but culturally and chronologically, your body gets you ready for the stage of life you're in.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's important that no matter what we're going through, and whether we have a disappointment or not, is that we are exactly where God wants us to be. And if we can find hope and solace in that, and instead of going, why am I in this situation, which I did, I've learned to switch to what am I supposed to learn here? What does God want me to do? And when I stopped thinking about myself and put my focus back on God and just obeying Him, I was able to come out of grief a lot faster. But let me tell you, I spent a whole month, all month of January, fasting and praying. And I went deep with God. And so because God has plans for me, and He needed me to move forward as quickly as possible.
What do you guys think when people, meaning well-meaning, well-intentioned people, tells you, "Oh, everything happens for a reason"?
I don't think everything happens for a reason, but I do know that God will take what happens to you to use it for your good.
Yeah, so
There's a difference.
likewise, there is a big difference between everything happens for a reason and the meaning you can give yourself by the help of God to the event or what happens. Again, I repeat, to me, the things we grieve often reveals what we value. Be it a person, be it a relationship, a dream,
A promotion, like anything that you are heavily invested.
I grieved leaving Mayo Clinic. God told me to leave, and I did. But I will tell you, I still grieved it.
Absolutely. And yes, we have to admit. Sorry, I want just to make.
No, it's okay, please.
We have to admit that grief is painful by nature. It is painful in many ways. So we are not saying that we are just grateful that we are grieving. No, grief is painful. Grief is messy, and
it's okay for it to be.
Yeah, exactly, and it's okay. But also, grief is informative if we choose to learn from it with gratitude.
Yes. Okay, so I would think journaling would be a great exercise to do when you are grieving, because when we see the world through our eyes and experiences, right? I know when I'm feeling a lot of emotion, either whatever emotion it is, it comes like torrential, right? Like I'm so busy, just like everything that I'm feeling and thinking and the brain going a million miles an hour, that unless I write down what are even just words, right, that are coming, I may miss the messaging. And one of the things I learned at U of T's mindfulness program is that I tend to have a bit of Pollyanna tendencies where I'm not down for long, right? And I used to, and I still do sometimes. I used to throw my own pity parties. Like I would cater my own pity parties, like organize it. Like I'm feeling like crap. It's like, okay, we're going to, have like junk food and watch like sappy movies, like organize my own pity party. By the morning, I'm like, I'm fine, right? Like, let's go, right? And one of the things that it took me a while to understand that I learned through the Mindfulness Center at U of T is that although I was not doing it intentionally, I was rushing okay, I'm over it. Let's go, and that meant for even I remember Youssef, you asking me when I first got my first PhD, you telling me, why don't you mention it? Why don't you celebrate it? Because to me, it's like, okay, done. Like, what am I going to do with, like, I'm just, like
Yes.
the wiring, right? It's like, it's such a hurry that I miss my moment in the muck. I used to, I do now. I take a greater awareness and intention, but there's so much gold in the muck, right? That really, if you don't take the time to learn the lesson, in some cases, the pattern keeps reappearing and reappearing and reappearing. And you keep saying, like, why God? And it's like, because you didn't learn the lesson the first time around.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not why God, what does God want me to do next? What am I supposed to be learning here? If you're stuck on a loop and you're keep having to take the same test over and over again, you might want to start studying for it a little bit.
You know what? And sometimes, and I came across this quote recently that said, if you keep coming across broken people, it's not that you're some kind of loser. It's that maybe your mission is to be their saving angel, right? Like there's a reason why these broken spirits keep appearing in your path. Mm-hmm. And it may not be that, again, there's just so much judgment.
Or it could be what that person thinks that they deserve.
Oh, yes.
A lot of times we get what we deserve.
So if they are
unconsciously, it's not a conscious.
Of course. I'm just sorry. I'm just there's so much gold in there that I want to make sure I crystallize it. So if you see someone having, tendencies or recurring patterns that are hurting them, right? And those people keep appearing in your life. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're meant to be their light. It's not a judgment on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a judgment on you. Maybe you're meant to be their light, but also what we project, we get back. Yes. So whatever you're seeing, whatever God's putting in front of you, you want to kind of be like, what is it about me? What is an internal about me that's attracting these people? And that's where you confirm with God, am I supposed to be helping them? Or is the devil sending them to bring me down? So that's where discernment comes in as well.
You and your devil, you scare me. I think that's why I try to stay away from it. Now, Youssef, you and I, as I mentioned before, you come from Northern Africa initially. And you're a citizen of the world, but initially. And I come from Latin America. Initially, I only lived there for like 14 years. So I'm Latin light, but it was still through war and a revolution, right? So they were memorable years. How do we stand in the middle of this storm? Like, really, this is beyond us meeting broken people. This is like, a coup. This is war. This is revolution. This is like collective grieving.
Exactly.
Collective grieving. How do we stand in the middle of that and either try to bring others forward or try to bring ourselves forward?
That's such an important question that personally I've been wondering and thinking and researching on that through my life. And I wouldn't say it didn't start in my Northern African or Moroccan part of life, but rather when I was in the Middle East and going through war after war and going through
trauma.
going through bomb attacks, going through earthquake in Turkey, and going through different things. And I was seeing the power of the collective grieving that can be a double-edged sword, in a way where you tend to, well, at least it was my case, where I tend like, well, everyone is going through the same, so I have to go through the same. And it was at that time that I started really being interested into grief, and I came across the 5 stages at the time of grief by Dr. Kubler-Rossler. And like many, I took them as a prescription rather than a description. And I was like,
I love that.
know,
That
right?
is
It's
so
like-
good.
And-
It's a prescription, not a description.
yeah, exactly. And that's a common mistake, I think, that we so I was asking myself, oh, how come that I am angry before being in a denial? How come that I moved to depression before that? So I was looking at those stages as a staircase and then comparing with others around me. But then, because the events were like so geopolitical events were much bigger than me, it
Yeah.
pushed me to take a step back and then start observing around me and start thinking, coming back to Mindy's point, what I do now. So it's pushed me somehow to think, okay, I'm going through grief. The people next to me are going through grief. So how we can build a connection and go through that without comparing our grievances or without taking those 5 stages as a prescription. And that really opened up a different approach to grief, and then started thinking of that in the different chapters of my life. When I left my corporate career, many people were, some congratulated me, they found a courageous decision. Some, they were like, oh my God, that's a crazy step. What are you doing? Where are you going? But what many didn't see is that there was a big part of grief there, even though it was my decision. But still, I was grieving a routine. I was grieving
Who you were.
status, an identity, a version of myself. And I was at the same time grieving, coming back to the imagined future, how I imagined my life being in the corporate career forever, and then grieving that. And at the same time, people around me were like, oh, that's okay, that's very courageous, so you are just moving, so we don't understand why you are sad. You took that courageous step.
It was your choice.
Even though it was my choice. So we tend again to come with a kind of a script for grief, and we try to apply it individually, collectively to everyone, while it's far from the reality. And I like this conversation. I want to say that I like this conversation. There are many conversations out there about grief, but what Mindy, you, Dr. Carolina, and we are bringing to it, it's the connection. It's where lived experiences meet human-centered thought leadership.
And I would add that it's not just for grief.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's for everything. If people would just stop putting their nose in other people's business, instead of being judgmental, be curious. Because when we're curious, that's when we can have that connection. Judgmental breaks connection. Curiosity brings it together, and it brings us back to that collective grief or that collective connection around really any topic, whether it be grief or finances or your job or what you do. I mean, any topic. And so I think if we were going to wrap this up, I think it's finding the gratitude in everything and being curious over judgmental.
So what is the best thing, as we wrap up this incredible segment, which I'm sure we'll continue with, what would in each of our minds be a better way to respond or to engage with someone that tells you or shows you that they are grieving, right? What would be a compassionate human thing to say?
Just say, I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you. Don't say, let me know if I can do something for you, because nobody ever does. If you want to do something for that person, just go do it.
Yeah, and I'll echo that by saying, I wouldn't say, let's just move on. I will say, I am here to move with and forward with you.
Oh,
At your,
wow,
at your,
that is so
your
sweet.
pace.
And I would say, tell people, if you are authentic and genuine, right? Tell me more about it. Or do you want to tell me more about it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just need to say it. And the more they say it, the more the pressure relieves, right? So, but you gotta be genuine. And then you gotta hold trust that you're not going to repeat it to someone else, or you're not going to, use it in a roundabout way. This is especially in workplaces, right? Where some, and even with clients too, because you don't want your clients to know you're not well, because they're counting on you, and there's a concern about the capacity of service and all that junk. I was on a call last week when I was getting out of a bad cough, asthma, pneumonia-ish thing. And I was already on a call with two people, and the third one was arriving. But the two that were there, I had to apologize and saying, I'm coughing and it's okay. I'm not contagious. I'm not sick. It's just whatever. And they were like, oh my goodness, like, is everything okay? Like, they were being kind. And then the next person joined, and she's like, oh, hi, Carolina. It's so good to see you. How are you? And I instantly said, I'm doing great. Thank you. And the other two are like, okay, a second ago, you were telling us you were losing a lung, right? I'm not losing a lung. I'm just exaggerating. But in as I said, I am doing great. Thank you. I realized what I just had done, right? Like, I know I didn't need to get into explanations, but nor did I need to say, I am okay. Everything's great, right? So I think our humanity needs to show more. And
I just had an article published with C-Suite for Christ talking about showing up, because I would like crying right before I get into a call. But that transparency, that vulnerability made that connection even tighter with me and my clients.
Well, send us the link, because we'll share it and we'll add it to a resource, our PWT Discover Knowledge Center, and for people to enjoy.
That's a great message, Mindy, because be it for grief or for anything, and I work with my clients on emotional adaptability, and one key fundamental idea, it's healing, and here I'm using healing between quotes, really begins when we stop fighting our humanity in a way or another.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
And I think that's really important to understand that, because especially for the men I work with, what I see, it's that we try to heal by being less human.
Yeah.
While and then we just drag that, because we are conditioned to try to fix. But the moment we understand that healing, the real healing, deeper one, begins when we stop fighting our humanity,
Right.
it just opens different doors.
And because what we resist persists, right?
Exactly.
So thank you so much. We'll put links to your article about it, Youssef, that you've written for us before. And Mindy, send me the link, and I will make sure to add it to show notes. So thank you, everybody. And remember, give yourself grace and gratitude when processing all emotions, good and the not so good ones. So thank you. And until next time, bye.